here's the thing, for some of us, if we've been through enough of these kind of situations, meaning really scary, really unknown situations, then we get a little, I don't know if I want to say better at it, though, have a bigger understanding of it. 2001, right? 9/11. I was in New York, and it was in fact my very first time to the city on my own, right? And growing up in New England, going to New York City was a scary thing. And I went for two reasons. One, I was going to get laser surgery, so I was having a preliminary appointment. Two, my yoga teacher, Patabi Joyce, was in town visiting, and so I went to celebrate, to be in the class with him. So on the morning of 9/11, we were there early, 6 a.m., something like that. We had our practice. It was like almost 300, maybe more than 300 people in the class, and it was just beautiful and amazing. Afterwards, I took a shower, hung out with some of my friends and teachers, and then I walked out to the street. And this is, if you know New York City, around 23rd Street and the West Side Highway, an area called Chelsea Piers. And as I was walking out, I hadn't been in New York that much, but I knew something was different. You know how I knew? Because on this corner right by the West Side Highway, there were a whole bunch of people, and they were talking to each other, kind of talking, and somebody was looking up and pointing. And this is not normal city, or especially New York City behavior. It's usually kind of a head down. We're not so much into devices then, but a head down, I'm doing this, I'm not. And so I get up to the corner, and I say to someone, "Hey, well, what's going on?" And they point, and it's not far away, 23 streets. You can see one of the towers at that point, smoke billowing up out of it, right? And what happened? He said, well, a plane crashed into it, right? And we're all thinking like, what the hell? A plane crashed into the building? Then, in that moment, while I was there looking at it, then the next plane hit into the other tower. Right? You could barely even tell what it was. It was happened so fast. What I could see was the tower was here, and then there was like a flash, and then out the other side, like was this explosion and smoke. And then somebody had a radio or something, and they said, another plane hit the tower, and so we understood what we had just seen. And that was the moment, y'all, where for me, click, 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 in my mind, I knew it's not an accident. I knew that, I didn't know how or what, but I knew that there was something intentional going on here, something very destructive and scary. So immediately, where did my human animal, my survival, my ego go? Went into fear, right? Suddenly I had, which most of us in our generation have not had, a feeling that we're under attack. And immediately I went to, and all bets are off. We don't know what could happen now, right? It could be bombs start falling from the sky. And, within moments, as I'm like, click, 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 apprehending all of this, you can see all around, there was a little bit of chaos before from the first tower. Now it went, right? And within moments, there were siren after siren, police car, fire engine screaming down the highway beside us. So, of course, my phone didn't work. I couldn't call anybody. I knew that I couldn't get a taxi, wasn't going to meet my friend for breakfast as planned. So I did the only thing that I knew how to do. And I found a nearby little tiny park area, and I sat down and I started praying. And it was a few months later, no, maybe a month later, I heard one of my teachers, one of my heroes, Ram Dass, who passed recently. And we were, he's a local here. And so a lot of us were able to go for memorial with him nearby. And he gave an interview and talked about 9/11. And one of the things he said is, I'm leaning on him because there's part of me that still feels nervous about saying this. I'm going to say it anyway, which is that it doesn't matter, right? And the suffering and the pain that's gone on, it's not real, right? So let me put it this way. From the human perspective, from the animal, the survival part, the 3D, right, the temporary part, right? These are just things we go through. And there is a truth about who we are, that is, we are much bigger than that, right? So these days, when people say to me, Daniel, how are you? What's going on? How is this coronavirus situation affecting you? Well, first thing I do is I take an emotional, energetic reading of the person that I'm speaking with, because truth is, and I'll tell you straight up, hopefully in the context of this, it'll make sense to you. I feel fantastic. I feel great. I feel incredibly optimistic. I was walking a couple days ago in the woods with a friend, and I thought, right, and I say that with caution because I don't want to be insulting to anyone who's dealing with a tragedy on the human level here, and the people who are in a lot of fear. I don't want to belittle that fear in a way that would cause them to feel judged or to have them close down more. At the same time, though, this is what came to me in the forest. My friend said, how you doing? And I said the same thing. I'm feeling great. I feel really optimistic about this. And so I thought, why do I feel so good and so optimistic about this? And it's because having enough times of spirit overriding the human part, I got to a bigger perspective. And I don't say this in any way to impress you about me, but to say that if we, and anybody can do this, you can do this right now. And especially if you ever are tempted by fear, right? Because there is a biological 2 million-year-old brain part of us that naturally goes to fear. It's the survival part. All it cares about is the continuation of the human life, right? And of course, there's so much around us, so many people in fear, and perhaps orchestrated. There are orchestrations in the media to bring more fear. So it's very understandable that anybody would be in fear. So if you find that happens, if you find yourself getting into fear, perhaps what you can do is remember, right? And I'm saying this in a particular way, remember space, because who you are is space, because Ram Dass was right. On the level of truth, the big level, spirit, we have nothing to worry about. This is the unknown that we are in. But guess what? We're always in the unknown. We never really know what's going on. Yeah, 9/11, that day, especially if you were there, made it really obvious. We don't know, right? Anything could happen anytime. And from that point on, it's always been a reference point to me. You know what? A plane could crash into this building right in this moment. So who do I choose to be now? One who's afraid or one who is kind? Of course, one of the great blessings that came in New York City in the next few days is, as we walked around, and I was stuck in the city for a few days, right? We did meet each other's eyes on the street, right? People slowed down, they stopped, they helped each other, right? And of course, that's one of the things that's coming out of this opportunity. And I don't know, y'all, why. I do know why I'm optimistic, but I don't know what it will result in, right? I know that this is a massive shift for us. And again, not to belittle the human tragedies and the suffering that's happening for people, right? And yes, the fear is real from this perspective, and this is happening for our good. Napoleon Hill said, every detriment contains within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And I don't know all of what we're going to get out of this. I do trust and know that it's happening for our own good, that it leads us to a new space. So I offer you that, and now a practical tool that you can use if you find that you are in fear. Guaranteed that from an energetic perspective, it's these lower centers that are most energetically consuming, right? We have 7, 8 energy centers that govern our system, nexus points. And so if you find yourself in fear, in a self-orientation, in a worry about others, and could they contaminate me, then something you can do, very simple kind of breathing. Squeeze all these muscles down here, the floor of the pelvis, lower abdomen, upper abdomen, pull them in. Exhale all the breath out. Squeeze those muscles in and breathe in. Right, you're keeping these squeezed in, breathe in as you bring your awareness up through the center of you all the way up to here. And of course, you want to do this with the eyes closed so that you can really focus, keeping that squeezed in, the breath coming all the way up, pooling energy up in this part of you. And then you hold it in as long as you can. And then when you let it go, relax and exhale. And just feel what you feel. What that does on a literal level, biologically, physiologically, is it takes the energy that was down here and brings it up here. It stimulates the brain, brings blood flow to the brain, brings cerebral spinal fluid to the brain. And on an energetic level, this is sublimating those lower centers that are about survival and directing the energy up to heart, to connection, communication, and up to the more spiritual, elevated aspects of us, to the oneness center. Right? And each time we do that, every little breath we do with that, right? And it's a strong thing. Every time we do it, we stop the hormones of fear, the emotions of fear of survival, and we bring it up to creativity, to restoration. Right? It's very simple, yet and very powerful. So, 1, awareness, remembrance of the truth of who we are. That can help. Space. Right? Fear is biologically mandated, yet we are much more than our biology. 2, we've got a breath, something that we can do. All right, y'all. I hope that's helpful. Again, I have full love, commiseration, empathy for everyone who is challenged in this period, and I am 100% available and of service, hoping that you are able to more and more take choice in your state. And on that note, I invite you to share this with others. I invite you to a free masterclass I'm teaching on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. I'll put the link down below. All right, y'all. Blessings.